Let's talk about Week 12. Who are some of the free agents that you're targeting going into Week 12? You know, we've got Kansas City, the Rams, both on bye this week. There's been injuries. People are going to their waiver wire. Who are some of the guys that you're recommending that they be looking for?
Yeah, assuming a lot of the big names are gone. Josh Adams is available in a lot of leagues. He's a guy to pick up heading into Week 12. Awesome running back potential in Philadelphia. I think he had 53 yards and a touchdown in a game where really the rushing attack got taken out really early by that Saints passing attack. So there's a good chance that he is very productive down the stretch. And we talked about him last week, that there was a shot that he could be one of those gems, one of those guys that every year comes out of not nowhere, but definitely surprises some people down the stretch in the final 5, 6, 7 games. And Josh Adams could be that guy. Traquan Smith is still available in a number of leagues out there percentage-wise. And his 10 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown makes him a must-grab if he is available for whatever reason. Derrick Henry's getting cut in a few redraft leagues. Heading into last week, people got frustrated with his lack of production. So I think he's somebody that you need to keep an eye on if he hits waivers. There's a good chance that, Tennessee's struggling, that he doesn't get starter carries. I get that. But I put out a video today, one of my early releases of the Fantasy Football Show, and it was on Derrick Henry. And it's the fact that out of all the running backs that are in the 3-4, almost past the flex-worthy range, you're not even really considering starting them. All the running backs, Derrick Henry, to me, has the most rags to riches potential, the kind of guy that can go from literally your number 4 running back, just like Nick Chubb a couple weeks ago, go from your number 4 running back to a top 5 to 10 fantasy running back. A couple other guys to grab: Theo Riddick, Legarrette Blount, Gus Edwards, the running back for the Baltimore Ravens. DJ Moore shouldn't be available, but for some reason he still is after his 157-yard one touchdown performance in Week 11. And Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, and Jonnu Smith are some tight ends to look out for.
He's Smitty from thefantasyfootballshow.com and sleeperu.com. He joins us every Tuesday evening. Smitty, how about at the quarterback position? We lose Alex Smith for the rest of the year with that knee injury or that leg injury. You've got Patrick Mahomes and Jared Goff, two of fantasy's top quarterbacks on bye this week. There's a slew of other guys that you're not sure about. Mitch Trubisky, kind of questionable for Thursday's game. Ryan Tannehill, don't know that if he's going to be able to play. Ryan Fitzpatrick got pulled in favor of Jameis Winston, and they're saying they're going with Winston going forward. Marcus Mariota, an elbow injury. You don't know about Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, or Joe Flacco for this week. Who are some of the available quarterbacks that you look at and you go, wow, for 1 week for a spot start, you've been hit by the bug or you've got the bye week concern, this is the guy to grab.
Jameis Winston's got to be a guy that if you're struggling, you pick him up and you got to play him. There aren't a lot of other passers out there that will be sitting on waivers that you can just plug in this week. I think there's a Joe Flacco could be on waivers, and who knows if he's going to play. Lamar Jackson might be on waivers in a lot of leagues, but what to do there? I don't know who's going to be starting in 2 or 3 weeks from now.
Well, you mentioned Gus Edwards, the running back for Baltimore. Came out of nowhere. We see it every year. We talked last week about Josh Adams being that guy, that late-season fantasy football darling running back that helps teams make the playoffs and win their championship. What about Gus Edwards? 6'1", 238 pounds, big, powerful running back, and certainly was on full display this past week. Alex Collins, with the exception of his touchdown run, did practically nothing.
Yeah, they might be looking to transition Gus into that starting lineup, but I think they'll kind of test the waters with him, give him some run here against Oakland. Gus Edwards has definitely potential, somebody you should definitely grab. And 17 carries for 115 yards and a touchdown, 6.8 yards a carry. No receptions. He only has 1 reception on the year. Granted, he hasn't played a whole lot. He got 10 carries in week 6, believe it or not. But he's averaging good yards per carry on the year. And I think he's worth a grab for sure.
Now, Kerryon Johnson's injury for the Detroit Lions. They went out, they got Legarrette Blount during the offseason. We know Blount always has had, at the very least, good success when forced into a starting spot. They've got Theo Riddick as their pass-catching back. What do you think about Legarrette Blount possibly being able to get those 15 to 20 carries a game and help Detroit and actually put up some good fantasy numbers?
I think he could. I mean, he is a touchdown guy. He hasn't had, I think if you look back on his last, 4 games, hasn't had over 6-7 carries. So and I believe he's looking at 1 or 2 receptions that whole time frame. But he had 10, 12, I think 16 carries earlier on during the season. Didn't do extremely well, but he did get I think it was a 2-game span where he had 3 total TDs rushing the football. So to say there is an upside there, I think that would be unfair. I think he has the potential to be a good flex play if given, some touchdown opportunities, and maybe I'd say 10 to 12 carries a game. Very, very possible. And given Theo Riddick's skill set, I don't see any reason why they both can't be productive, because Riddick is the kind of guy who pulls in 5 or 6 passes for, 50, 60 yards. And I don't think Riddick has a touchdown this year. So Blount is going to be the guy they lean to for the scores. For the receptions, it's going to be Riddick.
Well, Theo Riddick definitely in point per reception leagues has definite value, it seems like, especially since they got rid of Golden Tate. He seems to have been a star on the rise in that passing game, and they lean more on him. Marvin Jones. Any idea? Kenny Golladay got 14 targets last week, put up 113 yards, had the touchdown. Golladay is going to be a target monster if Jones misses again. Is there anyone else to catch the ball there in Detroit besides Golladay and Riddick?
TJ Jones, I guess. I honestly think it's going to be the Riddick and Golladay show in terms of targets, but is this going to hamper the offense to the point where they're playing Chicago? Are they going to be able to even do anything? Playing from behind, I think, will be a good opportunity for Golladay to get some targets at least. So I think that if there's anybody that does well still, it probably would be Golladay. I know the Bears could be suffering at QB as well, so maybe that makes this game a little closer than we'd think. But Golladay looks like a fantasy wide receiver 1 in the making. A guy I've been excited about all offseason. He definitely on my bold prediction list this past August. And I'm just so happy to see him getting an opportunity and getting those targets, because he is a beast and doesn't even know the kind of potential he has. He's just finding it right now.
He's Smitty from thefantasyfootballshow.com and sleeperu.com. He joins us every Tuesday evening. Smitty, we're going to put you on hold, bring you up on the other side, continue the conversation, my friend.
Sounds good.
Our guest tonight from sleeperu.com and thefantasyfootballshow.com is Smitty. Smitty, my friend, let's go ahead and turn our attention to some quarterback injuries. The Redskins, Alex Smith gone for the year with the broken leg. Colt McCoy takes over. They haven't exactly been getting their wide receivers and tight ends involved an awful lot, which was something I thought was kind of surprising. I thought that's what Alex Smith was supposed to actually do when he went into Washington. What happens now with Colt McCoy as the quarterback? And is McCoy going to be able to be good enough to prevent the Redskins from going desperate and starting Mark Sanchez before everything's all said and done?
Oh, that's a tough one. I've always kind of liked Colt McCoy a little more than most. Not that I think he could be a superstar or anything, but I think he may be able to manage this offense. But I think the problem with him is he's never stayed in the lineup very long, kind of like Fitzpatrick. I think it's just all kind of downhill from here. And like you said, the receivers weren't getting involved to begin with. I don't see them getting involved now. Adrian Peterson was on having such a great bounce back year, and you got to wonder if he's going to be facing more 8-man fronts. And I kind of just don't want to touch anybody in that Redskins offense right now in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, and as far as Adrian Peterson goes, with his schedule the rest of the way, Washington has the third toughest strength of schedule remaining for weeks 12 through 16. So Adrian Peterson would definitely be someone that if you've got currently, you might want to try and sell as high as you can possibly get for Adrian Peterson. Maybe a package deal or something. If you haven't passed up your league's trade deadline, I would say that he'd be a sell candidate right now.
Yeah, and there's two schools of thought with things like that. Sometimes when a quarterback goes down, a lot of guys think the team will run a ton. So you might be able to sell that angle that he could get more carries than normal, but I think he'll see a lot of 8-man fronts myself.
Yeah, right there with you. Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco. You know, we talked about this. We touched on this briefly in the last segment. Lamar Jackson came out and ran the football 27 times this past week and got, 117 yards, if I remember correctly. And He looked real good doing it, but not going to be able to sustain that as a quarterback in the NFL. Sooner or later, he's got to be a pocket passer. Running quarterbacks historically end up having to learn how to throw the football out of the pocket. You saw Cam Newton do it this past week for Carolina, and he was considered a running-style quarterback. How much development does Lamar Jackson really need to become a top-notch NFL quarterback?
I don't think he makes it to that point. I never really thought he had starting upside to me in terms of fantasy. He's not in a situation where I think he's got a lot of overwhelming receiving talent. So I don't think he develops into the quarterback people want him to develop into. I think he's an exciting player. He can produce number one low end QB one upside and really running back two upside as well at the same time. Maybe even low running back one and low running back two. I just don't know that he's going to even last the end of the season. And they're already talking about Joe Flacco maybe being able to play this week. I think that's a smokescreen. But I think that Lamar Jackson, you're right. There's no way he survives. And who's behind him? Robert Griffin III, another running quarterback that I doubt can run anymore. But the Ravens are in trouble. He's exciting, but I don't expect much. I think he runs the ball I don't know. I think 25 yards probably per 4 passing attempts. Something of that in that range, and that's awesome for the running game. What a point monster he could be if he stayed healthy, but he's that guy that you're going to plug in and he's not going to finish the game. I think you're dead on.
Mitch Trubisky, another guy that I think it's a smokescreen, them saying that he may be able to play through that shoulder injury Thanksgiving Day. At least we're going to find out. It's the very first game of Week 12. So if he doesn't play, Chase Daniel, a career backup, a guy that he's had some success when called on to start and be a spot starter. But how much does that Chicago offense really take a tick downward with Chase Daniel at the helm as opposed to Mitch Trubisky?
A lot, and it's bad news for Terry Cohen. It's probably decent news for Jordan Howard. I think they know they can't get Cohen the ball as much with Trubisky out, and Trubisky's the one that kind of helped Cohen reach his full potential, because Cohen was I was a big believer in him last year, and he disappointed because they couldn't get him the football. They couldn't find creative ways to get him the football. They didn't have the talent to get him the football. And he's not the kind of guy that's going to carry get a ton of carries between the tackles. So Jordan Howard, I think, might benefit from this, but everybody else takes a little bit of a notch downward, because I don't think that it's gonna come down to low scoring games and maybe still squeeze out some victories through the defense. That's what's going to happen as they weather through getting Trubisky back. They might be okay, the Bears as a team, but fantasy-wise, it's Jordan Howard or I think nobody. And real quickly, Russ, Mitch Trubisky's been running the football a lot. He's has 363 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, but he's on the year run 51 times, and that's a ton because of his yardage. And Jackson had 27 carries last week. So it's just, again, goes to show how much Lamar Jackson's running the football when he's almost at Trubisky's total of 51 in one game.
Yeah, I've got to find a replacement for this week. I've got Patrick Mahomes. I traded for him a few weeks ago. I got Patrick Mahomes as my starter, and I've got Mitch Trubisky as my backup, and I thought to myself, sweet, I get the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. Now, of course, Trubisky's injured, and I'm probably going to have to pick up somebody to go ahead and spot starting in his place to cover for the bye week for Mahomes. So, the Raiders running back situation, this past week against the Cardinals, a game that I know everyone here in Phoenix would just soon as forget and just totally remember that great Monday night game that we got to watch. But the running back situation, Doug Martin running well in the first half, and then, they say there's an ankle injury, and then John Gruden says no, he was benched. I wanted to see Jalen Richard. I wanted to see DeAndre Washington. Is there a rhyme or reason to what John Gruden's doing at all in Oakland?
The worst contract and signing, I think, in the history of the NFL, player or coach. I mean, $100 million for 10 years. At what point they have websites dedicated to how many more days he has left on his contract? Like, there's no love for John Gruden, and he loves everybody. You can't believe a word he says. Doug Martin's the next, bounce back, awesome running back for the next decade, according to him. And then what does he do? Pulls him, and he loves Washington. And now he says Jalen Richard could be the next Charlie Garner. I believe it was.
I read that quote.
So, it's like, wow, Gruden loves everybody. But I do like Jalen Richard a little bit. I just don't know if I trust Gruden to get him the ball, or if Gruden's gonna, throw Keith Smith in there, the fullback. And Keith Smith could be the next elite running back. Pro Bowl caliber fullback, according to Gruden, probably. So Jalen Richard's a guy to pick up if you also see him available in your league, and I think that he does have the potential to get you 100 total yards and maybe a good shot at a score if he's getting all the work.
Have you heard anything about A.J. Green for this week? I know that originally a couple weeks ago when the toe injury was first announced, it was going to be, 3 to 4 weeks, or then it got pushed off. It's not going to return until December, but they milked it for everything they could last week. This week, I think they're going to do the exact same thing. We're not going to rule him out until we actually get to Friday or something, or Saturday. He's got the nice matchup against Cleveland, but any word on whether A.J. Green's going to play?
No word. He was inactive. There's chatter about whether he was going to even have a small chance in week 11, and then obviously they ruled him out. The last I've heard is he's week to week with a decent chance to return next weekend. But facing the Browns, you've got to think they're going to say, hey, we can probably have a good chance to win that one without him and get him healthy. But I think he plays week 13 when they face Denver. They'll want to win there, and if he's healthy, he'll play. But I don't think any setbacks have happened. I'm pretty sure he is a candidate to come back in week 13.
He's Smitty from thefantasyfootballshow.com and sleeperu.com. He joins us every Tuesday night on the program. Smitty, watching that game last night between the Rams and the Chiefs, something that stood out to me, of course, the Rams, I was curious what they were going to do without Cooper Kupp, because Cooper Kupp has been one of Jared Goff's most trusted wide receivers. I think I heard a stat that said that Goff to Cooper Kupp succeeds more often than any other quarterback to wide receiver combination in the NFL so far in 2018. And so I was curious what was going to happen. It certainly looked like as though they're getting the tight ends a bit more involved. Tyler Higbee had a pretty decent game. Gerald Everett had 2 touchdown receptions. What do you think about that? Is that going to be a trend going forward that we're going to see Higbee and Everett kind of picking up that slack more so than a guy like Josh Reynolds?
At the same time, I do not. I think that one of them will do okay, a little bit more than they would have had, Kupp been in there. But, I mean, you're talking about 49 passing attempts for Goff, they were bound to get some catches. And I think if we look at the numbers, it was something along the lines where Higbee did get 6 receptions, but I think Everett only pulled in 3. So, I think when you throw 49 times, that's bound to happen. But I think that there's so many mouths to feed. Even Gurley in the back, catching passes out of the backfield, Cooks, Woods, and then now, Josh Reynolds emerging as a potential fantasy wide receiver 3 moving forward. I mean, how could you not consider him that, given that the way this offense throws the ball? I pick up one of those tight ends if you're in desperate need, or especially a backup, but I do not expect anything more than 3 or 4 catches and like 40, 50 yards a game on average.
Talking about Todd Gurley, news came out today that the Rams say that he was kind of inhibited some or limited some because of an ankle injury. Gurley has had a huge workload this year, 210 rushing attempts. He's got 43 receptions. He's a huge part of that offense. Do you have any concern about Todd Gurley going forward?
I do. I think that he is the kind of player that, in Dynasty you want to maybe consider selling high. I think he's on pace for something along the range of like 305 or 300 rushing attempts on the year. That is quite a number, and usually when running backs hit certain numbers of that level, there's concern that they break down, and the stats are against them for avoiding injury. So I love him the rest of the year. I don't think a lot of leagues allow trading anyways, but if you're thinking about trading him, I wouldn't this year, obviously, unless, Dynasty leagues sometimes allow you to trade year-round. But I think that he is definitely a candidate to sell after this season. I don't worry about him entering the remainder through weeks 13 through 16, though. Detroit, Chicago's a tough matchup. He should do okay against Philly and the Cardinals in week 16. So awesome player to have in your lineup the rest of the way.
Smitty, we're just about out of time. Real quick, just remind everybody about Sleeper U in thefantasyfootballshow.com real quick.
Yeah, so Russ, been in the business since 2004. I believe that was the same year you got into the content side of fantasy football. You are a dinosaur in the fantasy football industry. I started the Fantasy Football Show because I really want to push video content this year and get a video show to the point where it is a daily show. So that is my goal. I hope everyone can go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Fantasy Football Show, and just get involved. I'm going to answer questions in the comments and put together shows around some of the user comments. So, Russ, love to get you on the show and do some kind of live show with you at some point. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But I always appreciate you having me on the show, Russ.
Hey, always my pleasure, my friend. Best of luck to you this week. I know that I somehow managed to squeak out a victory against you in our Dynasty League in week number 11. I greatly appreciate Tom Brady having the bye that week.
Yeah, my entire team was injured and full of buys, so I looked at that score with disgust. But next week.
Yep. There's always next week, and you're still in the playoff hunt in that one, whereas I am not. I'm just the bottom feeder, ruining other people's seasons.
And congrats on the Rams, man. They're looking good. You've got to be excited.
That's Smitty. I'm Russ Bliss. I'm live at Santisi Brothers. You're listening to The Red Zone on 1580 AM.
thefantasyfootballshow.com. Subscribe.